All right, man. This is episode number 59 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is being recorded on Saturday, May 13th, 2023 at 2:21 p.m. And what a gorgeous day it is, man. I know it might be redundant to say so, but these past couple of weeks, it's just hey, nothing redundant about the true emotions that you get looking outside, man. You just see the roads, the sidewalks, the grass, everything just painted with sunshine. You hear the birds chirping and talking about God knows what. There's a nice, beautiful breeze in the air, man. It's truly like a painting outside, man, that you're living in. It's something that can't be put into words. Once you're in it and you realize, wow, man, this is something that's just a pure euphoric feeling that cannot be said. It's like, describing like being in love with someone. It's like, well, I can tell you, you know, a very surface level kind of, I love I love this person, or I love this piece of art, or whatever. But when you're actually in it, it's something else entirely, man. And hey, there goes the mail. Look at that. Oh man, I tell you, gosh, I was at the cinema yesterday, man. And they showed the trailer for the new Paul Schrader film, Master Gardener. I had seen the trailer previously, but I had forgotten about it, and I saw it's going to be playing actually next week. So really looking forward to that, man. It's interesting. His last couple of films, it's almost like they make up something of an unofficial trilogy in a way, of just these isolated male characters who have a troubled past, and this kind of what looks to be, I haven't seen the film, I haven't seen Master Gardener yet, obviously. I'm talking about in reference of First Reformed and the Card Counter, but their kind of descent into something worse. I mean, First Reformed and The Card Counter are two different kinds of films, different kinds of characters, but this, it looks to be more like an amalgamation of both, where you have kind of this violent past of Oscar Isaac's character from The Card Counter, as well as the writing in the journal, like in First Reformed. So, but very much looking forward to it, man. I've talked about before. I think Paul Schrader is such an interesting filmmaker. I'd probably say he's more known for being a writer, of course. And actually, speaking of which, I'll talk about it later. Actually, I just recently saw the new 4K restoration of Raging Bull theatrically, and that was truly a treat. Just a true next level film, man. But maybe I'll talk about that later if I got the time. But yeah, Master Gardener looks very good, man. I don't follow up with any. I don't care about reviews or anything like that. But I have heard some so-so things about it. But hopefully, it'll be better than I expected, man. I got no expectations going into it, at least not trying to, but we'll definitely be looking forward to watching that, man. But speaking of the cinema, man, I think 2023 so far has been a really exceptional year. We're only in May, but I've already seen just a couple of films that have been really phenomenal, and some of them have been, I probably considered 2022 films. I haven't looked at the release dates on them, but I'm thinking of recent films I've seen, like One Fine Morning, The Innocent, Showing Up, John Wick Chapter 4, just all these really terrific films, man. And I saw this film yesterday, which I'll be talking about, man. It's the new Matt Johnson film. Now, Matt Johnson has really become just one of my favorite filmmakers working. This is his third feature film. He premiered in 2013 with a phenomenal debut. His film The Dirties, the drama, I would say dark comedy, if you will, drama about these two friends who are filmmakers, but one of the kids is starting to go a little off the edge a bit, man. He's getting bullied at his high school, and he wants to make a film, but the reality and the fantasy of it are really starting to blend together for him. The film takes a very meta approach at times, especially with how it ends, and I thought it was a terrific, terrific film. Then he followed that up a couple years later, I think in 2016. Let me actually look that up. I want to make sure I got the year on that right. Let's see here. Yes, that's right. 2016 with this film Operation Avalanche, which is also good as well. I think it's interesting to see his filmmaking changes from The Dirties, which is a little more lower key, working with less of a budget, where you have this where it's made to look. I think parts of the film early on are shot on, it may have been, I don't know if it was Super 8 or 16 millimeter or what, but then the rest of the film I looked up was just done with a regular red camera. I think it was red camera. It was a digital camera that they put a filter on. And this was about, it's a mockumentary about these guys who are making it takes place in the late 60s, and they're working with NASA to to film the moon landing, fake it. And it was a very interesting film. I would like to watch it again. I watched it fairly recently, and I think more of it worked than it didn't for me, but I still thought it was a very well done film. And his new film, which we're talking about here, it might be my favorite of his work. I think it's a serious contender, favorite film of the year so far. And this is his new film, Blackberry. This stars him. He's starring in he's one of the main actors in the film, directing it, also written by Jackie McNish and Matthew Miller. The film also stars Jay Baruchel, who was known for being in a lot of the Judd Apatow comedies, probably about 10 or so years ago, and he's gone on to a very interesting career. And Glenn Howerton, who is known for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I've seen a handful of episodes of that show. This film also has Carrie Elway's in a small role. Michael Ironside shows up in the second half. Saul Rubinek has a small role as well. And this is it tells you right off the bat, man, this is a fictionalized version of the rise of this company, man. This, RIM. And from there, man, we have these two main characters, man. We have, I guess, they're real people, but in the context of the film, which I'll talk about in a little bit, we have these two characters, Mike and Doug, and they're going to this guy, Jim, forgot the hell his last name, man. I apologize. They even make a joke about it in the film, and I look at me, man, I already forgot his name. But anyways, they're going to him, man, and they're saying, like, we have this idea for this phone, man. It's an email machine, it's this all-in-one thing, and it's great. And this is a period piece. It starts off in 1996, and Jim's like, what the hell are you talking about? Get out of here, man. This is ridiculous. Anyways, some circumstances happen where both of them are in bad situations, and they do kind of need each other. And it's the rise of this company, pretty much, the rise of the Blackberry, and then the fall as well. Jim, played by Glenn Howerton, who I would say is probably the closest thing to the star of the film, man. He is pretty much in almost every scene of the film. He has the most screen time out of any of the characters, but he is he's a very headstrong kind of guy, man, but he's very aggressive. He's not willing to take no for an answer. He's, whatever it is he has to do, man, if he has to get aggressive about it, if he has to yell at people, there's a great moment early on where Mike is telling him that this other company basically screwed them out of some modems, man. They just screwed him out of a bunch of money. So Jim gets on and Mike calls him up, and he's like, hey man, we really need an invoice for this. We need to charge you as an invoice for this. And they're like, whatever, man, get out of here. And Jim calls him up, and he's like, hey, we're not gonna take no for an answer, man. You're gonna pay this, and you know what, goddamn. And from there, we start to see really the problems that arise with this, man, where BlackBerry is dominating the market and the problems that come along with it, where Jim is pushing up more and more, and really where the main kind of conflict of the film, which kicks off the whole rest of the film, is this character, Yankowski, played by Carrie Elways, who gets in a situation where he's basically forcing Jim and the company to really exceed what they can do, by selling phones, they're putting more phones on this network, and the problems that come from there, the possible stock fraud, Michael Ironside comes in about halfway in the film. I should probably say a little more than halfway in the film, in a really terrific role as well. He's playing this heavy kind of character, a character like not physically I'm talking about him, like he's a heavy man, and he comes in here and he's really laying down the law. And I think an interesting thing that it's got to be talked about with the film is the film opens up with a text that says something like, this is a fictionalized, this is inspired by real people and, real events, but this is a fictionalized account. And I think that's an important thing to note, because I was looking up a little bit about the film after, because you watch a film like this and you know that at some extent it's going to be fictionalized. I was talking about the film Tetris recently, which is a film I like, but when you get to this just completely ridiculous Hollywood car chase, it didn't happen. It's completely ridiculous. It's completely shallow, the writers, for the sake of the film, feel like they need a big climax instead of having maybe something more dialogue heavy or something more intellectually engaging, rather than something very flashy and very visual. And then you look it up, and of course it didn't really happen. It's ridiculous. But it's, you enjoy the film, so you go along with it, man. And here, I'm looking up this film, and I'm looking up stuff about the real guys, And it's interesting with this film because this is based off, partially based off a book as well. I want to see if I can actually get the name up here of the book. That was closer to the real events. It's called Losing the Signal, the inside story of Research in Motion, RIM, which is, to my knowledge, about the rise and fall of this company, and or I think more specifically about the Blackberry phone, which I don't even know. Did I even say that? That's how they got big. They had the Blackberry phone, it was this huge thing, and then the iPhone came out in 2007, and pretty much made any kind of non-touchscreen phone obsolete. But when it comes to real life, man, you have Matt Johnson and Jay Baruchel who are open about the fact that this is a fictionalized version. That while events in the film did happen, this is taking more of a traditional cinematic narrative, man, where you have specific characters and you have specific points that can't be missed. That there are certain arcs that characters have to have, man, at least what they feel in the script. And I watched a very interesting video from somebody who, I want to get this channel right here, actually. I want to pull this up. This guy, Matthias, Random Stuff, 2221. Somebody who worked for RIM back in, I think he said in 93 is when he joined. And he went through the trailer. And he was going through the trailer and talking about the inaccuracies there, talking about how this is from his point of view, from the looks of it, is very fictionalized. It's very, he's talking about how, the real Mike, what the hell is his name? Or I'm sorry, not the real Mike, the real Jim. I'm sorry, he wasn't like this. He wasn't this big aggressive guy. Him and Mike worked along fairly well. I mean, they had their issues, and Jim could be a pain, but it's not like this. And Doug is, the Matt Johnson character, is nothing like the real guy. The real guy didn't dress like that. Because Doug's, he's got all of his clothes in the film. He's wearing movie T-shirts. He's wearing pop culture T-shirts. He's got like a Doom T-shirt and like a Wolfenstein T-shirt and a T-shirt of They Live, and so it's kind of the same thing where. What I was talking about with Andrew Dominik's Blonde from last year, that a lot of people had a problem with the fictionalization. A film like Blonde and Blackberry is not trying to set out to tell the true story of these events. This is an alternate kind of history in a way, but they both take these real events and work a different narrative around them. And whether or not you want to go along with that for a film is completely your prerogative, man. If you're going to sit here and talk about this didn't happen or this didn't happen, that's your right to do so. But it does kind of come back to the question. For two of my favorite screenwriters, Larry Karaszewski and Scott Alexander, who've made written films like Ed Wood, Man on the Moon, People vs. Larry Flint, Dolomite Is My Name, where they're taking these real people and real events and are twisting it in a way enough that there are truths there, but there are a lot of there's just a lot of fiction there, but there's still an appreciation for these people. So you have a film like Ed Wood, which doesn't really, it doesn't go into his, alcoholism. It doesn't go into any of the probably, less glamorous parts of it, but it's altering history in a way to make you look at this guy in a certain way where, you're watching it and the real Ed Wood probably didn't always have a chip on his shoulder. There were dark days, I'm sure, but it has the spirit of a film that this guy who's always been made fun of for making these quote unquote bad films, which I've always said it, man. I think compared to I've seen plenty of bad 50s science fiction films, and I don't think Ed Wood is nearly the worst, man. I mean, yeah, sure, they're lower budgeted, but I'm sorry, man. They're memorable. I'll take a poorly made film over a boring film any day. Let me tell you, man. While not all of his films are top notch, and I don't think anyone's really going to argue that, his films are enjoyable and they are memorable. And now you can say that's because they've seeped their way into pop culture. That's a whole other conversation. My point is, man, is that going back to this guy before. I also recommend his YouTube channel, by the way. This guy, Matthias, Random Stuff. I'll put a YouTube link below to his YouTube channel. He does lots of interesting videos about different kind of stuff that, I'll be honest, I don't have a clue what about, like electrical stuff and engineering stuff, but it all looks interesting. This guy is passionate. He's a smart guy, smarter than me, man. So, he makes very enjoyable content. I was also watching an interview with the real Jim Balsiel. Yeah, I think that's how you say his last name. There's a joke movie about his last name, but I don't remember how his last name is actually pronounced. And he worked with the film, and he's aware. He's like, hey, man, I know that this is not, I wasn't like this, and they knew I wasn't like this, but, I participated with the film. I think the real Mike chose not to be part of the film, and for his own reasons, man. I'm sure. And it'd be interesting to hear the people involved at RIM who see the film, whether or not the inaccuracies of the film will deter their enjoyment. Because ultimately, I think this is it's great to see Matt Johnson's progression as a director and writer, and I'm not giving him all the credit, of course. I'm just saying comparing it in with his previous two films. I mean, this has a bigger budget, this has a big cast behind it. I mean, there's a bigger cast, I should say. I loved a lot of the locations of this film. I loved the you look at the walls and it's covered in movie posters and tons of pop culture pieces, and the characters are playing like Doom on their computers and stuff. So if you're gonna watch the film, if you think that'll be a deterrent of your enjoyment of the inaccuracy of it, and if you're gonna sit there and not be able to get into not be invested because of that, then that's your it's all in the eye of the beholder. But I think as it is, as a film, Matt Johnson as a filmmaker has just become so interesting with each of his films, man. I love the way this is shot as well. It's shot almost like a documentary in a way, where you have, the camera is very rarely stationary. They're doing a lot of zooms, and there's a lot of times where, certain frames are obstructed by different people or different objects in the foreground that you watch a regular cinematic film, they would never allow that. You'd have the camera operator and the director know exactly what they want. They want, specific things in the frame, and they would never allow stuff like that, which is why when there were a lot of indie films that were doing the same kind of camera work that never made sense to me, man. I like some of the Duplass brothers films, but I never liked when they did that. Really, they did these terrible, unnecessary zooms all the time. The camera was never stationary in a way where it was nauseating. And you watch those films and you're like, what are you doing, man? Is this intentional? What is going on here? But this film, it makes sense, man. I should also say what I wanted to bring in comparison to this is a book that I recommend to everyone to read. This book that, what's the copyright on this? I'm pretty sure this book was 2004, but I just want to make sure that it's important. Because, let's see here, copyright. It's like finding a needle in it. All right, let's see, copyright 2003. This is a terrific book called Masters of Doom, how two guys created an empire and transformed pop culture. And it's fitting for a companion piece to this film, because this is about the rise of these two geniuses, these two engineering geniuses. I'm sorry, maybe not engineering, but what's the term for it? They're smart guys, man. I'm trying to find the words. You have John Carmack and John Romero. These two guys who are really good at what they do, and in doses, they can make truly exceptional stuff. They're video game designers. They made Wolfenstein. They made Doom. I forgot the name of the game they did before Wolfenstein, but basically the book talks about the contrasting ideologies of these two and the contrasting kinds of people that they are, where the book does a great job at going back and forth of, on one minute you're on John Carmack's side and you see that Romero is being a pain, and then at another point you're on John Romero's side and you see Carmack is being obnoxious. Flip that. I mean, they're both obnoxious in their own ways, and how, ultimately these are two really smart people, really talented people who just it's like dividing by zero. It's like two magnets, man, that are on opposite sides. They just can't work with each other, man, because they're two different kinds of people. And in this film, they actually they reference John Carmack at one point. They need another engineer in there, and they talk about getting John Carmack. And I was waiting for a character to come in to play him, but they never did. But this was put out. This is like I said, copyright 2003 on this, so this goes up to a certain point. Whereas Doom 3 was 2006, I believe, 2006, 2007, and then eventually John Carmack would go on to work on the Oculus Rift, which is a virtual reality device, and John Romero, I believe, works now in Ireland. He has his own company there, Romero Games, and id Software, I don't know if they got taken over by Bethesda or Bethesda got something like that. I know, like, the weird thing is that I don't care about video games. It does nothing for me, man. It's not I want to spend my time, but I'm fascinated by the history of it. I'm fascinated by 90s kind of tech and 90s video games, so I know a little bit about it, man. And I love Doom. I actually have a Doom tattoo, but my life and my heart is the cinema, so I'm not going to even pretend like I know, I'm like an expert on this or anything, but I know a little bit about it. But I think someone can make a really terrific film out of this book. And actually, John Romero has a book coming out in July called, I think it's called like Life in First Person. I think that's what it was called. So I can't wait to read that, man. But, I love this whole era. I think it's all fascinating. I love the technology of the era. One of my favorite YouTube channels I love watching. And like I said, I'm not a game guy or anything like that. I know like a surface level knowledge, but it doesn't interest me, man. I don't play video games. It's not my forte. To each their own, do whatever you want to do. I'd rather use my time doing something else, that I find worth my time. But it's the YouTube channel that I watch is this guy LGR called Lazy Game Reviews. I'll put a link to his channel down below as well. But he does really interesting discussions and reviews of older technology, primarily of just like 90s PCs and video games and such. And it's all it's like a very cozy experience to watch. He's one of these guys, he's very casually funny, he's a very smart guy, he knows what he's talking about. If you're like, I need to know about this 90s piece of tech or 90s like PC, whatever, you're going to want to go to this guy. But I was talking about before, the other YouTube channel, the fella that I was talking about there, I'm going to pull him up right here, Matthias Random Stuff. Even he goes through the trailer, and even though he talks about it's pretty much almost entirely, or at least mostly inaccurate, even though, there are some parts of the trailer where it's, they're jumping in time, and he talks about how the technology, they didn't have that in the 90s and stuff, but, you're watching the guy, and, he's saying, like, it's not meant to be like this Blackberry in the 90s. But anyways, what I'm saying is that at the end of it, he talks about how he does want to, he is going to see the film, and I'd be curious what he'd think of the film, man, because, if you're going into this, especially if you worked at RIM, or you worked in that time period, and that you're getting a fictionalized, a fictionalized account of this time, will that deter your enjoyment of the film? And that's totally up to you. But I think right now, I don't want to put like favorites or anything like that. When I say it's a contender, I'm thinking about my favorite films of the year so far, but films I like for different reasons. I enjoy, like I talked about this. I enjoy this and like One Fine Morning and Showing Up and The Innocent and John Wick Chapter 4. I enjoy all these films for different reasons, and I'm getting different reactions out of them. It's the same way where you're like you can be hot on like a dumb comedy, but then like some intellectual film or something I would say quote unquote higher brow that you're not a fan of, you're not comparing those films, you're getting different experiences out of them. You're saying, okay, well, did this film make me laugh? Okay, it did. Did this film's message come across? Well, I don't think it did. So it's ridiculous to compare them and all that. It's just totally nonsense. But terrific film. This has I'm sure this will be available at home soon. This has a small theatrical release right now. I'm sure it'll be expanding to theaters. But I really enjoyed this film, and this is already a highlight of the year, and I'm looking forward to hopefully this gets released, man. We're at the point now where who even knows what films are going to get physical releases anymore, man. It's upsetting, but it is what it is, man. It's sort of like I'm not, I want to legally pay for a copy if I'm able to, but if somebody, when it comes to situations like this, let me put it this way, this way, man, if somebody or a company is not going to put a film out and somebody else is illegally, hey, man, you had your opportunity, man. I won't get into a whole discussion, but I read some post recently about somebody knocking, some of the people who are selling bootleg Blu-rays, and I was just like, I see where this guy's coming from, but I just entirely disagree with his point of view. I just don't agree. But hey, I ain't losing sleep over it, man. It's all good. How long have I been? I've been with this film for 25 minutes. Jeez Louise, man. Gosh, well, I guess if I have some extra time left, I'll talk about maybe a little bit more about this book, man. Let me just get a sip of this right here. I always get to silence my my telephone. But yeah, very, very good book as well, man. Let me tell you. Gosh, man, what the hell? I apologize, man. How unprofessional of me. Yeah, grab this book. It's fantastic. It's a quick read too, man. It's only what? Let me see here. It's only about flip to the end. It's only about 300 pages or so you can read this fairly quickly. But it's engaging. It's one of these books that reads so cinematically that it would make for a great film, and I love that whole time period, man, because, I'm talking about, I love the time period of, like, the tech and stuff, because when I'm watching this film and I'm reading Masters of Doom, I think both of them do a great job at making it, I don't even want to say dumbing it down for an audience, because, you don't want to dumb it down too, you don't want to, you want to watch a film where a character's hacking and they're just, typing a million, typing all this crazy information, and there's 1,000 screens up, you're like, what is going on, man? And then in real life, you're like, no, it's not nothing like that, man. That's dumbing it down, man. That's so the guy who's, shoving popcorn in his face and isn't even, watching the film can go, oh, I get it, he's hacking, man. But I'm talking about more so that they make it so, the casual reader or viewer can, see that this is a complicated system they're working with, but you understand there is no ambiguity in what it is. When they're talking about this film, the networks are down for these. We've overpowered We've overpowered the networks, man. They get into a little bit about, okay, well, we can re-engineer this and that, but ultimately that's not important. As an audience member, you're watching it and you're like, all right, I get it. I get the tension of the film. I should also say as well, the soundtrack in the film is very low-key, but it's very well done. A lot of synths in the film, like synthesizers, a lot of just like kind of background noises where it's not right in the forefront. There's maybe only one time where they use like a popular, they use like a song, like a song, not a piece of score, which for the opening credits. And they to really get you in the mindset of this era. They're showing a bunch of pop culture. They're showing a bunch of like news reports, just like, oh, telephones, or we're gonna have mobile phones one day, and we're gonna have the internet on the phone, and it's just crazy as hell, man. But very enjoyable, man. I can't say enough good things about this film. And look at that, man. I didn't even get to anything else I needed to get to because I'm too busy talking about this one film, man, Jeez Louise, man. All right, I think it's time for me to head on out of here, man. I've got so much to do and not enough time to do it. But hey, man, we're going to get done what we can get done, and I hope you're going to do the same as well. So with a gorgeous day like this, or whenever you're listening to this, use your time wisely and use your time to do what you want to do, man. If you want to, what I was talking about before, you could say, hey, Dan, what are you talking about? I want to play video games all day. Then, man, you play video games all day. If that's what you want to do and you're enjoying it, man, then you do it. But if you're like, I don't want to play video games, but my friend wants to play video games, then what are you doing, man? You got to lay down the law and be, killing with kindness, man. Just say, I don't want to do that, man, but maybe another time. Or if you even want to do it another time, maybe you don't want to do it at all. That's your prerogative, man. But I'm going to stop rambling. We're going to get on out of here. Thank you for spending your time with me yet again. Or maybe it's your first time. And if so, thank you for listening this far in. Hopefully I didn't waste your time. Anyways, here I am rambling again. You guys have a beautiful day, a beautiful weekend, and a beautiful life.